Chapter 24 of No Somniel Engage is a difficult map with a time limit of 15 turns and periodic unit movement shenanigans. Just like the previous chapter, this map can be made easier with Astrostorm cheese, but unfortunately in this specific circumstance, it gets complicated. Since Louis is dead, it gets difficult to defeat enough enemies to make using Astrostorm completely safe. But fortunately, that's not a particularly big deal to me, so I send Yunaka out immediately to hit past Lear with an Astrostorm and leave her to die, because using a rescue staff to save her is not worth it. I have somehow managed to miss every single optional rescue staff in this playthrough, so I don't have very much to work with. I have managed to lure past Lear into moving towards us, however, this alone is not enough. If I don't do anything, past Lear will just get stuck behind a gargantuan clump of enemies. So we must hit her with an Entrap staff as soon as possible, because I simply cannot afford to fight that large of a group. Unfortunately, I'm also running very low on Entrap staff uses, and because I cannot inherit skills in this run, it is impossible to have both increased staff range and Divine Post for increased staff accuracy. If I try using Entrap with Makai's increased staff range, then I'll be taking a big risk because Entrap has a bad hit rate against Pastelier. And if I run out of Entrap staff uses, then I cannot reach the boss and the run will effectively be over. On the other end, using Entrap with my Byleth user will grant increased hit rates, but also make its range a lot shorter, meaning that I'll have to wait for a leader to get closer to me before I try to Entrap. This has the unfortunate side effect of forcing me to fight or stall an entire map's worth of enemies for several turns. I decided to go for the second strategy and try to figure out a good way to proceed. If I stay in the central lane, then I'll be attacked from three fronts, the top, the bottom, and the right, which with a relatively weak team is untenable. I decided to consolidate into the center lane temporarily to convince many of the enemies to move to the center lane, and then I quickly move all my forces south. This causes the central area to clog up and means I only have to deal with two fronts, the top and a heavily diminished right. I retreat into a corner and block both paths with fire dragon veins, fighting off enemy flyers with my own, and I end up burning up most of my engage attacks just trying to survive. Unfortunately, past leader ends up moving quite awkwardly and gets stuck smack dab right in the middle of a gigantic enemy death ball. Fortunately, I am just barely in range to entrap her, but the positioning is quite unfortunate. But I decide I have to just go for it, because waiting longer will just make things worse. I have Hortensia using Divine Post boosted Entrap staff on Pastelier and succeed, moving her closer to my army. But Pastelier lands in a way that blocks Hortensia off, making it difficult to dance for her to use her goddess dance. I attack a corrupted sniper with Marin and manage to kill him with an extremely lucky 5% crit, saving me several actions and opening up Hortensia to be danced by Cedo and allowing me to access the goddess dance. I then get to work on the boss, but unfortunately nearly all of my attacks suffer from both low damage and a low hit rate. I begin by applying Draconic Hex to Pastelier, and then set up chain attacks with Sapphire and Marin. Marin, who I reclassed back into a Wolf Knight, repeatedly chain attacks with daggers to quickly apply 3 stacks of poison for 5 additional damage per hit, which adds up to a lot. I proc chain attacks with Mavir and then get very lucky with a 39% hit from Fram, and finish off Pastelier's first health bar with even more chain attacks. I then get extremely lucky with a 5% Nova crit from Veil, which wipes out the boss's second health bar, and then I reorganize my units to use Goddess Dance and get lucky with a 48% hit from Risotto, and only just barely manage to defeat Pastelier with a Leer. This was extremely close. If my luck was only slightly worse, then the run would have ended right here.